Okay, welcome to today's lecture on Christian response to culture. This is the lecture number 11 in our course Gospel and Culture. As we continue to learn how best we can understand the culture and how best we can translate, transmit, and transform our existing cultures. Today's topic is Christian response to culture. As a people of God, we have a great role to interact with the culture. Niebuhr's five-part model. I think we have already looked at these concepts, glimpses of concepts in other lectures, but again, it's a memory for us to come back and see what is Niebuhr's five-part model. Number one, so Christ and culture and paradox. We have looked at this, but I brought it again in a chart form so that we can come back and discuss. First, today we have seen in the lecture Christ against the culture in one direction and Christ of culture in another direction. Both are in different directions, north and south. In between, we have seen this Christ against the culture encourages people to reject and separate. Do you remember I said people giving lectures and messages saying that you need to reject everything because that's a worldly thing and you need to be separate, even giving a kind of spiritual emphasis. God is calling you. Come out from that. Be separate. In the earlier days, church compound mission methodology was one of it. Separating people from their local cultures. And Christ of culture, that goes an extra mile and affirms, assimilates, accepts everything. These two are in two different directions. In between, we have seen the Christ above culture, neither against nor assimilation, but Christ is above the culture. This Christ above the culture cooperates with the cultural context, and then there is another Christ and culture and paradox. We have discussed that also. Christ and culture and paradox, it negotiates the culture. And we have discussed all this, and then this Christ transforming culture. Day before yesterday, we have seen Christ transforming the culture. Christ above the culture, Christ and culture and paradox, Christ against the culture, and Christ of culture. So among all these theoretical frameworks, we have seen today what we need to focus is Christ transforms the culture, transforming the culture. So Yoder's three-part model, that is a Niebuhr's five-part model, and there is another scholar, Yoder. Yoder's three-part model is this: the active church. Number one, the active church. This active church seeks to change society by tackling problems. This is called engaging the culture, engages the culture, finding out some problems in the society, and like an NGO, getting into that, solving the problem. This is called active church. This active church seeks to change the society. It's not, the focus is not on the culture, but the focus is on society, because society and culture always have an interrelationship. So when we are focusing so much on the culture, society rejects. So this active church, rather than focusing on the culture, it focuses on the society transformation, socio-political, economic oppressions, and then the struggles in the society, economic development, and development, educational development. So whatnot, the active church focuses on the development of the society. And number two, conversionalist. Yoder says number one is an activist and conversionist. The conversionist church seeks to change the believer by focusing inward, withdraws from culture. Do you remember yesterday we discussed these two technical words? Focusing inward transformation, and outward. Inward focus and outward focus. So Yoder says, conversionist church seeks to change the believer. Yesterday I emphasized on church on the hill. Inward transformation, looking at inward, introspection. By focusing inward, withdraws from culture. And the third one is focusing church, confessing church, active church, conversionist church, and confessing church. This confessing church seeks to show society by modeling faithfulness, worshiping in the midst of culture. Maybe among these three, what we need in our Asian context is confessing church. Confessing church contributes in transforming the culture, because particularly in India, what people need is they need darshan. They want to see. It is biblical also. Jesus, Nathanael asked him, Lord, where are you staying? Jesus would have explained, but he said, come and see. Come and see. Because in Asian context, what people need is they want to see. Visible spirituality is very much required, and that's the reason confessing church seeks to show society by modeling faithfulness. In our Asian context, we have this pedagogy education method. In that pedagogy education method, Guru and Shishya, they live together. The Sishyas, they see Guru and they observe, and they're not so much philosophical teaching. It's mostly learning by observation, learning by interaction, learning by asking questions, learning by seeing Guru, what he does, how he does, and by seeing. Even Jesus modeled it. He selected the ignorant, innocent, of course, one or two good people, wealthy and smart, but most of them are not really smart. He selected them, he showed them. Mostly, you just read the Gospels, 4 Gospels, and Jesus hasn't taught them a lot of philosophy or theology. He said, oh, come and see me. And he took them with him, and he helped them to see how he was praying to the Heavenly Father, and he lived with them, he ate with them, and he showed the kingdom of God through his life. So seeks to show society by modeling faithfulness, worships in the midst of culture. This is very much required. Worshipping in the midst of the culture, not apart from the culture, not being separate from the culture, but worshipping in the culture. So because when you worship in the culture, the society looks at the church and they see this. These are the 3 models Yoder said: active church, conversionist church, and confessing church. And now, Gallagher's 3 responses. There is another scholar, Gallagher's, his 3 responses. Number 1, hostility to culture. This is a negative view. As I said, I know it's like a Christ against the culture. Hostility to culture. Because we are all sinful people, we have this inborn tendency of evil. We think I am right, the other is wrong. My culture is superior to the other culture. So, hostility to the culture, it is a kind of negative view. This is one response. The other, in this, isolation, because we try to isolate, we try to escape the reality. Even now we are in a multicultural context, particularly in India and even in Asia also. So we try to escape the reality. No, you cannot run. How long we run? How long we cover the basket? How long we hide? No, we cannot do that. We need to face the reality. How are we going to face the reality? By being relational with people and society and asking questions and having a reciprocal relationship. So sometimes we isolate our children. How long we isolate? We cannot. How long we separate? We cannot. They need to get into the world. That's what Jesus did. Jesus didn't isolate his disciples. He encouraged them, go into the world. You need to be in the world, but the world should not get into you. Fortress mentality, this hostility culture. No, building a huge walls around us. Fortress, you're keeping individuals inside the fort. So you don't allow them to go out. And how long you keep them inside? The walls will break one day. And we need to know what's happening outside. So hostility to the culture, particularly in the mission history, people have done this. Church compound mission methodology. They brought people outside their culture. They gave them some small jobs. They have not allowed them to go back to their cultural context. And they assimilated into new culture, Christian culture. So this is one of the methods. Gallers reminds us of hostility to culture. And in this, substitution. What is substitution? So in mathematics, children learn it. They substitute x instead of y. There should be y there, but they remove the y and keep the x there. So substitution. As a Hindu, as a boy comes to Christ, from a Hindu cultural context, he has his own way of cultural lifestyle. The dress, the habits, the eating style, the talking style, the greeting style, and the names, everything, so many contexts. So what this hostility to culture group do, they bring that individual out of that culture, they keep him inside the walls in a fort, and they substitute many things because he will be changed. So in many ways, substitution, creation of an alternative. He or she comes from a Hindu culture or an Indian culture, a different culture context. So a lot of things will be substituted, and he will be imposed on a Christian culture. As a result, what happens when he comes out of that fort? He becomes irrelevant. He doesn't know how to swim. When he comes out, he doesn't know how to swim because he is very well taken care inside. So as we continue to see Galler's three responses, we have seen hostility to culture. Number two, acceptance of culture. Navy. Of course, these views also fall into any one of those Nibur's 5 views, but we need to look at these. So acceptance of culture, what happens? Resignation. Abandons attempts to influence or change culture. So abandons attempts to influence or change culture. So accommodation, carelessly assimilates into that culture. This is like a Christ of culture. Carelessly assimilating. Yes, we need to assimilate into new culture, but carelessly assimilating. So here and there in Christian pilgrim centers, what is that? A lot of people, they go here, Velangani in Tamil Nadu, and here in Andhra Pradesh, particularly in Vijayawada, Gunadala temple they call, going there on the mountain. I went and I have seen what happens there in Gunadala temple. That's the reason I can talk from my eyewitness. Just like any other temple, shaving the heads, breaking the coconuts, and doing some sorts of puja. And they don't know really what is Christ, who is Christ, and what is the gospel. and nowhere you see there is a kind of biblical standards there. That's what I say, carelessly assimilating into the culture. Christian response to culture, this is what happening. Some are hostility to culture, and some are carelessly assimilating into the new culture. And then relativism. Today, particularly 21st century, the post-modern philosophy is a subjective philosophy. They say everything is subjective. There is no objectivity here. Everything is relative. What is good for you, and what is good for me. You are okay and I am okay. And this is very rampant in the Western context. In the West, if you offer anything to people, no, everybody, if you give a track, they say, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm okay. To say I don't want, they say I'm okay. So today, the same thing, that relativism says, I'm okay. Accepts all cultural values or practices as equally good. Here is the point, as equally good. So the acceptance of culture, today we are in this relativism context. So you are okay, I am okay, everything is okay. Accepts all cultural values or practices as equally good. Some Christians do practice this. And then third one, discernment of culture. Discernment of culture. As I rephrased it, is a kind of contextualizing, critical contextualization of the culture, critically evaluating, nurturing view. This is called nurturing view. The Galler's third view views culture as a matrix of good, bad, truth, or error. So culture is a matrix of good and bad, truth and error. That is true. In every culture, you have good and bad, and you need to nurture the culture, and the bad should become good, and good should become better. Denounce as the false while nurturing the good. For example, you want to eat only yellow in the yak because there are a lot of proteins in that. So you don't want the white in that. So you remove the white and you take the yellow. So nurturing view discerns what is redeemable rather than rejecting it totally. Of course, Gallagher has really rephrased, but he made it very logical for us to understand. And this view, nurturing view, discerns what is redeemable rather than rejecting it totally. This is a good view. You and I today, when we encounter into different cultural contexts, we should understand what is redeemable in this culture rather than rejecting it totally. Because Bible also clearly says God is redeeming the entire world. Christ is reconciling, redeeming the world unto himself. So here is a great challenge in mission praxis. You and I, when we encounter a new culture, instead of rejecting totally, we need to see how best we can redeem it. There will be redeemable element in that culture. We need to find bridges to redeem that culture and build some conviction that God is already present and active in all human cultures. This is the truth. This should be a Christian response, because we believe God is omnipresent and God is already present and active in all human cultures. I'm not talking here pantheism. Pantheism believes God is in everything. God is in this mouse, God is in this computer, and God is in this lamp, and God is in everything. No, I'm not saying that. God is present everywhere at the same time because he is omnipresent. And he is omniscient. He knows everything. That's the biblical understanding. But God is present in every culture. God is present among the Hindu community and Christian community and Jewish community, everywhere, because God is present everywhere because he is omnipresent and omniscient. And in a matter of fact, all human beings are created in his image, irrespective of religion, culture, context. Every human being is a child of God. But those who respond to him and come back to him, they are his disciples. So this nurturing view builds some conviction that God is already present and active in all human cultures. This should really sink into our minds. When we are engaging in an Indian cultural context, we should understand that God is actively present in this Indian cultural context. So he is already present. And also God is active in all human cultures, whether you realize it or not, whether we preach the gospel or not. God is actively present because Bible clearly says, if you don't worship, even the stones will shout. No, Bible clearly says, oh, trees, come and clap. No, the trees can clap. The God is an amazing, God is beyond time and space and cultures. God is beyond the cultures. So God is actively engaging in every culture. He is redeeming. No, he is nurturing. Even in, we talk about the Hindu cultural context, which has a lot of evil elements, which are true. But there are so many Hindu people who try to reform those cultural contexts. Even atheists. In Tamil Nadu context, when I was doing my MA in religion and philosophy, I had to read this man, um, Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy, an amazing man. You all should read his writings. He's not a so-called believer or a religious man. He's just an atheist. But the transformation he brought in Indian culture is amazing. I have not seen any so-called Christian believers. Even I am not able to do like what he did. The way that he fought against the casteism, dowry, and the evil structures in the society. You know, a man with honesty, integrity, and dignity. No, he fought for dignity. He fought for liberation. He fought for justice. What not? A great man I have ever seen in the history of India. A great man. You should read Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy. No, who told him? God is already present and active in all human cultures. So what I want to say, yes, when we encounter into culture, this should be our view, nurturing view. And when we have this view, nurturing view, we have sympathy, empathy, and our ministry will be entirely different rather than the traditional view of rejecting and changing everything, going and aggressive against the attitude. And some case studies from the biblical point of view. Christian response to culture, as we are discussing this topic. We have seen three scholars, their opinions, and now biblical case studies. How did the following biblical characters interact with their culture setting? Maybe I give time because this is a class. I haven't allowed you to talk. Today, I think I decided I don't want to hurry two lectures giving in 1 hour and making you hurry and bombarding you with a lot of theology and philosophy. I just go slowly. We can have an interaction in the class also. Friends, come on. How did the following biblical characters interact with their cultural setting? Now, we are also in a different cultural setting. And we look at the biblical characters. Come on. Can anybody react? Answer? You can unmute by yourself.
I believe Esther followed the discernment model. She
Yeah.
retained her faith in the God and her way of doing things, the Jewish culture.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, she respected the Persian culture, the good part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, in my view, Daniel has rejected the what do you call, the Babylonian culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think they all adopted differently. That's how I feel.
So, anybody contribute? Do you think that Daniel really rejected Babylonian culture?
Mm, no, from the time he went to Babylon,
Mm-hmm.
he remained at Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
He died in Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
He was the minister for 4 kings.
Mm.
So he changed with the culture, with
Okay.
4 different cultures, like,
Mm. Yes, thank you, Brother Hubert. I think you are very smart.
Hmm? Thank you.
He, he,
Very good.
he
Very good.
whole cultures. Amazing, man. Yes, in one sense, Brother Smiles, what he said also true, but it was like a critical contextualization. So Daniel also used a discerning model. Yes, in many ways, he adopted that culture, the culture of eating only one item, the non-veg, he rejected. But all other, I think, even the language. See, culture is an amalgamation of language, food, dress. 100%, I believe, Daniel adopted Babylonian dress, Babylonian education. You know, he had to study enchantment, magic, philosophy, and that Babylonian language he learned, because language and culture has a lot of relationship. Yeah, somewhere else. Anyone else? Thank you, Brother Smiles and Hubert. You contributed quite
Yeah,
significantly.
I think we can see even Joseph also, he adopted the culture, that is the food, dress, and everything with the
Egyptians.
Egyptians. Yes.
See.
And one thing we have seen that when I didn't remember that exactly, there is a time that his brothers came and there is a 4C or something will be there. He put that was stolen by his brothers. So I think he is also went extent that he also went with Egyptians some part. There is a time I am not getting that. Someone can remember. He put false accusation on his brothers that they stole some vessel or something where they see the foresee the future or something. It was clearly mentioned in Bible that they have stolen that. He accused that. So it tells that he is also seeing that he is also using that kind of vessels or something where Egyptians are using. But main thing is, but he never moved away. The main is he's very strong in basic ethics like that. He never sinned against the God. Some basic principles he never moved away from that. But culture he adopted some cultures with the Egyptians.
Excellent, Srinivas. You are right.
Same thing, Moses also.
Mm.
Hello?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, brother. Please.
Moses also preparing for deliverance. So his presence, it was threatened the prosperity of Egyptian people. So they thought there is a new king. So people of Israel were too many and too mighty. That's what Exodus 1:8 and 9 says. So Pharaoh was a Seti, who scholars call him Seti in 30,008 BC, feared the unity and the fruitfulness of Israel, threatened the safety of his nation. So he thought that they were becoming enemies and they will fight for us. So it is a Moses vision of God to Moses, and that's why the Pharaoh, because they had a fear of Israel's growing in number. That was what Moses did as he was preparing for them for deliverance.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. You take say, brother. You will say,
Joseph, please.
Yeah. See, Moses grew in the Pharaoh's house
Hmm.
as a son of Pharaoh. I think he learned all the languages, supposed to be the future king also. So he grew in that culture. But that only many times what I'm just, when these lectures are going, my mind also is beating. Yeah, yeah. There are times like Daniel, they stood for, there was something like Moses also, there's a verse, no, he didn't want to be called son of Pharaoh, something. So, maybe when faith issue is coming, they're standing for the truth. When they have to do something against the will of God. Otherwise, they are very much adjusted to the culture, I feel. So, these things are also coming. Many times when they have to, Esther also has to stand for the people. Moses also, there's one verse, no? Pharaoh Kumar Anipinchukodakunda. Adi, I think that verse. So there is Daniel also. They are running everything in the king's palace, and prime minister, chief of the three, and all those things are happening. But when it comes to some principles, again they are standing for the truth. Even Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they didn't. So those things are going on, even though they have assimilated into the culture, but something is against God, they stood for the truth.
100%. Thank you, Brother Joseph. So here is an
Yeah.
issue. These people, they stood for God in a, particularly in a theological context. Theology and culture. Here is a difference. For example, Joseph, he has every right to reject when king offered a heathen woman as his wife.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He was very happy, a blessed family. He established a wonderful family. Then his brothers, look at his brothers' family, such a rugged. Everybody has bundles of problems within the Judaistic culture, so-called faith. But he was in a different culture, but he established an amazing family. He had children, he named them, and he enjoyed his family life, Joseph. So here we need to very carefully diagnose. But mostly what happens in the church, they make the minor things as major. They take these examples. Daniel stood for God, you reject. No, they are very much assimilated into the local cultures. For example, Joseph. Anyway, I am very 100%. I believe, and I teach now also, a believer should marry only believer, and quote unquote. And I continue to teach the same thing, but just for a discussion level. I'm saying. So Moses, when he went, I'm not sure whether Moses married a believer. We never knew what kind of faith they, because their Moses' father-in-law, no, I don't know what kind of God he was serving. Still, scholars are struggling to understand. He says the priest of Midian. What kind of priest? There is no evidence that he knows the Jehovah.
But his mother has brought him up in the knowledge of the Lord Jehovah.
Whose
So
mother?
that's why he was grown up.
Moses.
Joseph.
Moses,
No, I'm not talking about
Moses'
Moses.
mother.
His mother-in-law, father-in-law, Jethro.
No, that is afterwards. I'm talking mother itself. If you read in the Exodus 3rd chapter or 6th chapter, we'll find that because of his mother upbringing in the short period of his small child, even a few days, because after Pharaoh's daughter giving back to you as his mother was nurturing him, he brought him in the knowledge of Yahweh.
No, you are misunderstanding. I'm not talking about Moses. I'm talking about Jethro.
Jethro.
That is right. That is afterwards. That's what I'm telling.
No, I'm not talking about Moses. No, Moses, he stood for God. No, I'm not talking about Moses. See, Moses married a Jethro's daughter.
Yeah.
No, but here I am talking about the element of culture. He knows what is right and what is wrong, and mother inculcated their spirituality. He knows God of heaven, very intimate manner. I'm not talking about Moses. So a man who knows God jumped into another culture, Jethro's culture.
Yes. Right.
See, he didn't reject everything there.
Yeah.
Even Jethro can come and advise him, Moses. What? Sometimes
management of the people.
These principles. there is something out there in the culture which is valuable. That's what my point here is. In every culture, there is something which is very valuable that contributes to us. So when we are jumping into other culture, we should carefully understand it, and maybe we can get into a kind of positive attitude to learn. And at the same time, because anyway, we are the children of God, we know the text, we are not compromising, but we can have our own strong faith in the Lord. When things go wrong, and we can be politely reject. Even Daniel rejected, but no, we know only one thing. Daniel rejected. But if we are there, I don't think so he rejected. He explained. You look at the text very carefully. He just pleaded, just give me a chance. Give me a chance. I will eat vegetables, and you compare with everybody. If you think I am weak, maybe I will eat. No, he did not reject there. He explained. Today, what we taught people is, you need to come out. You need to reject. Now, people, when they grow in the Lord, we have no right to reject. We have a right to explain.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right?
correct.
I don't think so anybody in the Bible rejected. Jesus never rejected.
Yeah.
Joseph never rejected. I don't think so Esther rejected anything. See how carefully Esther went with the fear and trembling into the king's presence. You know, very strategically, she said, I want to talk to you. Come.
Respectfully.
You know, king said, oh, Maharani, you tell me now, I will solve the problem. She didn't say that. She said, come tomorrow. During that time, the psychological war happened, and the king was waiting what she will say. Very carefully she articulated every phrase. You read the Bible.
Yes.
66 books of the Bible I read very carefully. There is no single instance where people have got rejected any culture. Only they explain. Even in the book of Acts chapter 15, I asked you yesterday to go back and read. They haven't said you reject. They said you need to be careful with these three, and food offered to the idols, and sexual perversion, and any meat that has a strangled blood in it. They explained it.
Right, exactly, you're right.
The Naaman, John the Baptist, it looks like John the Baptist is an aggressive prophet, but he never dealt with the cultural issues. He dealt
Exactly. When Brahmins convert to Christianity, we cannot force them to eat meat, That's what we are doing today.
Yeah, that's true. Because we bring the theology of food.
Yeah.
Brother Paul, what I'm saying, his aim is to win a man to Christ. He wants to become everything to everybody.
That's right. That's what
Roman, Greek, Gentile. His only purpose that he will win person to Christ. He is willing to be transformed to their cultures. That is the best example, I think.
Yes, because even the Egyptian gold is gold.
Yeah.
Egyptian gold is gold.
Though Moses was upbringing Egyptian upbringing, Moses knew of his Hebrew origins. He never forgot that.
So, cultural questions in our ministry today. So, we have discussed enough. So, these are the some of the discussions and how best we can respond to our culture. So, maybe
Brother Naaman, what you didn't say? Anything?
About Naaman? Yeah.
Anything? We didn't comment, no? So, just
anybody can say anything about Naaman?
Yeah, he rejected, no?
Where?
To dip in this thing, water.
See, actually, we need to, there is a long...
That is a different context, I think.
Thank you, Brother Hubert. There is a context there. See, these fellows in the heathen, their cultural context, particularly in Asian, in the Semitic cultural context, the healings, rivers, and there is some kind of inclination. Even now in India today, so people go to rivers for healings, kind of getting rid of their karma. So because he needs that kind of treatment. Prophet he would have done it. He would have healed him and said something. But prophet understood his culture. Maybe that's what I understand. So he asked him, yes, you go there in our the Jordan River, dip 7 times. No, he got angry. He thought, no, even we have rivers, because he knows that's the cultural way of doing there. Because in their rivers, they go and dip. But he might have tried also. No, we don't know everything what happened there at the back. He might have tried in some of their rivers. Nothing happened. So here he came to Israel. But again, he is telling him to go back to your cultural way of doing. So he went, and then finally he obeyed. And then he dipped in there for 7 times. He got healed. So here it's in that cultural context, I brought that name.
No, that servant girl very clearly brought him what it is. We had to praise God, though she was there. She was a Jewish and she was in their house. She did not leave her background. She wanted to tell Naaman about the grace of God, God who heals.
No,
So
brother,
she-
don't, Francis, no. We are not talking about faith. That's a different thing.
No. That's what I am trying to tell you is,
It's
though
only
this
culture.
girl was there,
No,
she
she
did
is
not
very,
leave her.
no, she is having the faith in Yahweh, and she informed him, when you go there, you will get healed, because Jehovah is a great God. There is a prophet
That's
there.
right.
So we are not talking anything about these names, about the faith issues.
No,
So
I am not
the
talking,
culture.
I am also not talking faith.
Hmm.
I am telling that though that girl was not in the Jewish environment, she was in the Naaman's environment, still she made it possible. No, that's how she helped him. That's what I am to tell that.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
she's in a different culture. She was able to explain her culture to him.
Hmm.
That is what I am talking about. Okay, leave it.
Yeah, she explained a faith context. When you go there, God of Jehovah can heal him. So she explained about the faith. So the prophet asked him to go, and this is something to do with the cultural context. Yes. So
Fine.
these
In fact,
are
this point, Doctor, you mentioned about the prophet respecting the culture of Naaman and ask him to be healed in his own culture. It shows that actually you have to respect the other cultures also. It's a valid point that you have raised.
in the
No,
entire
that is
Bible.
what all our course is about.
Yeah. In the entire Bible, there is no other incident like that. Anyone Jesus never asked anyone to go and dip into the river. The entire Bible, you never see. Only this case. Because it's a cultural issue. And today we have a healing crusades. So we call people on the stage and ask them to, they're rolling down, doing all. So where did we get this? This is all from the West. So whatever somebody is doing there, the model, so we are bringing that model here. No, that's fine. Sometimes it's happening and it's good, but we need to develop different model. A different model, a model that is relevant to our culture and the context. So which will be very much, for example, I pick up because the issue came, let me discuss. So there are some people who tried the indigenous model, they succeeded. For example, Bhakt Singh, he brought this model of love feast once in a year, Mela type. So in a Indian cultural context, once in a year, people go like a Mela. I still remember as a young boy, traveling to, all people traveling to Tirupati, I have gone several times, staying there 1 or 2 days with kind of such a spiritual environment. And even Yesana now he conducts there. I think it's an amazing. You can't imagine the crowds they come. And who else? Some people have experimented in the history of missions. They did an amazing.
Divanai also does, brother, in Guntur.
Yeah, because he particularly is from Yesana model, because he's a part of Yesana.
CPM also does that.
Yes, CPM. These are all indigenous models So they attract a lot of people. They became a blessing, by the way. There may be some theological differences, but they became a great blessing to the people of India. And a kind of ashram model. People go there and be there and get blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, there is also Old Testament, brother. In the Old Testament, they all had to, what was there 1 week like that, no? In Old Testament,
Yeah,
practice is
even the
there.
children,
Booths,
they have to come to the
convocation,
temple.
booth like that. Old Testament. I think that it is there.
Yeah, Jews do that. Jews go and in remembrance of their the 40 years in the desert, they go and stay in small huts for 7 days. I remember in my childhood, when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, my mother took us to some mela like this on the banks of River Krishna. In the sand, they put big tents, and we stayed there for 2-3 days under the tents there. I mean, I still remember that. I don't know who did that, which mission did that, but yes.
It's amazing. See, staying there at the banks of the river, such a cool breeze, water, that gives a spiritual rhythm, energizes an environment. So we are really losing our soil.
Kerala also they do it.
Kerala is the biggest one, I think, in the world. I think that one.
Tiruvalla, they do it.
Yeah, Kerala. Biggest Mormon, what? I don't know what is called.
Mormon. River named by Mormon, their river bed, they do it. It is near Tiruvalla.
Tiruvalla, yeah.
But what happens, all these indigenous expression of their relationship with the culture has been labeled as syncretism, labeled as heathenism, labeled as not inside the church, because they are looked at as outside the church. You look at a lot of criticism on this. Maybe I thought of sharing this, I forgot. Now it came into my mind. Near to Warangal, there is one group. I forgot his name. So there is a huge healing center. I think every Thursday or sometime people come. When I was in Warangal long back in 2000, I think 1999 or 2000, I visited once. Amazing. Huge crowd. And I saw him preaching. Solid evangelical message. And after that, because the people come there, stay there 1 day, 2 days, a whole day, a kind of spiritual ashram model. Those centers are labeled as, sometimes some people say those are a demon.
Still they are doing at Warangal. Still they are doing at Warangal.
Yeah, still it is there, I think. So these models, some of them are really amazing. We need to go back and study and understand. Of course, they are very good in their faith. And when we look at outside, we think they are syncretistic. We don't know exactly. We cannot blame. But the more indigenizing our way of approach will help our country to know who Christ is. So this is what my whole teaching is. Somehow we need to do an exegesis of the culture to understand, because it is biblical.
Methodist have in Darur, I think Methodist annual some Darur on the Bombay Vikarabad we go on the way Darur.
Yeah. I know actually once I spoke in Hyderabad, the big Methodist church and somewhere city. So the bishop sat with me and said, we want to bring you to that big mela. They call it a mela.
Mela, yeah, Darur.
Lakhs of people come there. I heard it near to somewhere, Vikarabad or somewhere.
Yeah, one day I was coming by train, brother, from Pune. In the daytime I was coming. So I could see it was all full of that whole village, that area. Full of people.
Those are the real expressions of Christian faith in this country. Those models should be studied, encouraged, and practiced. But what happens by and large, those models are forgotten, because the Western model of stage and all this way of things were highly elevated, exalted, saying that this is Christian, that is non-Christian, that is unchristian. Most of the time, those expressions of Christian faith with the culture has been labeled as unchristian, syncretistic practices, heathen practices. No, they are giving up, they don't have convictions. But anyway, we continue to discuss, and today I'm very happy.
This, brother, you might have heard, brother, Yeshu Darbar, no? I don't know. How is it?
Yeah,
You
it's
may be knowing.
amazing. Yeah, I know. Yesu
Allahabad.
Darbar, the Allahabad University founder.
Vice Chancellor. I forgot name. I'm not getting. Yeah.
I forgot his name. He's there.
Andhra also they are having near Rayalaseema, they are having like this
Yeah.
very old church. They are doing that.
Yes. Those are the practices that we need to study and discuss and understand. Okay, thank you. I think we need to pray for Ketan.